Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Troy.
And I'm Ben-Jamin Toy.
We're broadcasting from the Cohesion Culture headquarters in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, where even when it rains, the sun still shines.
You're going to hear real-time stories from leaders confessing their most crucial or recent experiences in business.
Learn what their cost them, steps they took to fix it, and how they planned
to not do that one again. All right. Welcome to the Conversations with Cohesive Leaders. We've got Jon Clark joining us, and I'm going to start with a little fun fact, just getting off the rip. I married Jon and his wife.
This is my favorite way to introduce each other.
This is one of those times when you don't pause, Ben. After
it was intentional.
Oh, I know it was, yeah.
Welcome, Jon. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig in here. Funny past conversations and then plenty that we probably haven't covered in the past.
Yeah, it'll be great. So, one of the things that we like to always do when we start out is to learn a little bit more about you as an individual. So we do a little something called Connections Before Content. It's just a way to kind of lighten the mood a little bit and not have us focus so much on, what our role is as far as our job. So tell Ben and I, even though we know you, so you're going to have to then really work hard, but tell us something about you that's not on your resume.
Yeah, so that one always kind of trips me up sometimes because I am an open book. But one thing I am thinking of right now is more of, I don't want to say an obsession, but a deep passion for movies and TV. It's one of the ways that I wind down, but I can't just watch a movie and enjoy it at face value. I'm paying attention to the production quality, the writing, and things like that. I think in a separate life, I might have been a movie critic. And I guess with today's world of internet, I could probably very quickly become a movie critic because there's very low barrier to entry, but definitely a huge movie buff and to kind of digging in and watching different movies and obviously TV shows too.
Do you have a genre that you really love?
I've been very much more into, I guess it's kind of action and thriller, but heist movies. It's one of those things that I don't think I would have the guts to pull a bank heist myself, but it's really great to kind of see all of the logistics and all of the thought process that goes into pulling off a heist.
And sometimes, like when you watch those, do you ever root for the bad guy?
Oh, most of them, yeah. I mean, typically your person robbing is never a good guy, but yes, I just kicked off the TV show Leverage, and they are technically the good guys that are trying to, kind of a Robin Hood mentality of stealing from bad people. So it's the perfect scenario of watching these people do bad things for the right reasons.
I always find that so amazing, like, to watch a show and something like that's happening, but here I am, I find myself like silently rooting for that person to win. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me.
Well, the best writing paints, and you can easily make the steps and jumps to where that person got to. A lot of folks are rooting for Thanos in Marvel movies, or you can easily see how circumstances got somebody to that point. And so other types of things, wow, okay, John Q, right? He's trying to save his child with a sickness. You can easily see how people get to that point.
Yeah.
So
it's really great. Okay, good. Thanks for opening up our eyes about movies and those types of things. Really see how we could just really have much more of a conversation with you about something like that. And it's such a cool little question to ask people. I especially like it when I have to do after hours activities and people come up to me and they want to ask me, something about, tell me about, like what you're doing or, what's happening. And I like to really go, I'm going to answer that. But first I want to know a little something about you. And then I kind of lead off with that question. And before you know it, they've really forgotten the question that they were asking me because it was really a throwaway question. So really didn't have much meat to it.
So the next thing we'd love to know, Jon, is tell us who you are. What are your identity, your character traits, behavior traits that others would describe you by, or things that you hope or aspire to be described by?
Yeah, this is really good. We did this as a practice at a previous company of who do you think you are, then who do others think you are, and how much does it overlap? And one word I think that always comes to mind that others have also said is driven. Always kind of been that personal development junkie, so always trying to figure out how can I be the better me, or how can I be the best version of myself. Uh, Father, if that, I guess that's a word, right? I'm a father of three boys, so that's important to me, and making sure that I'm balancing the life of being driven to do well in business as well as being a great family, a father and husband. And leader is the one that is always interesting because I don't always have that title, but I do try to lead. And when I'm put into different groups, they say, "Hey, you're such a leader," but I'm not always the one with that title. So that's always been one that I've been striving for. To your point of like, I think I'm a leader, but I want to see if other people also say the same thing.
So let's just go back to some characteristics. So you did a fine job of identifying some roles that you have. So when you said you were the father, want to be a good father. So that's your role, right? Your role is
Hmm.
father. But what are the characteristics that make you, in your mind, a good father? Now, we're not comparing it, and anybody listening, you do not have to follow this exactly. These are John's words. So, John, what is it? What are the characteristics that make you that effective or that good father?
I like that. We're digging in here. So I think for me, it's focusing on providing value or providing service to the family. So it's understanding that I've got things that I'm focused on, but I also want to make sure that my family is taken care of. So servant leader might be it, but it's really focused on being selfless and making sure that my family is all set, but both financially, emotionally, and I guess you could throw food in there too.
And what about the amount of time that you have to spend with the family to earn that title of good?
I like that. Uh, we'll probably get into this even deeper, but setting boundaries. So balancing how much energy I'm putting into my work versus family. So I don't know the number of hours, but essentially every day by 5:30, 6 o'clock, I switch from work John into family John. And so I kind of have those boundaries in place on most nights that after 6 o'clock, I'm focused on the family. Morning, they get a little bit of my attention, but it is kind of chaotic with kids going to different schools. But nights and weekends are definitely family time, and to me, that is not always true for all families.
Okay, and Ben's going to ask a question here in a minute, but I just want to keep following up on this. But what do you do to make the switch at 6 o'clock? What is it that you have to either do mentally or physically to make the switch at 6?
Yeah, I don't always do this, but definitely, especially since my office is in my house, I have to kind of mentally prepare myself to make that switch to family, because if I don't, I still bring a lot of that work with me. So I'm upstairs in my office, and kitchen and everything's downstairs. And so it is mentally switching off, making sure that any emails are sent, any conversations are closed, and just kind of having a couple minutes of not breath work, but just a couple minutes of silence to kind of change that mode from work mode to dad mode.
Okay, great. So I'll offer you a piece of advice, and for anyone listening for this, because this is something that I started a long time ago. Whether I worked outside of the home or I was working, remotely in a place where there could be some confusion as to whether I was at home or whether I was working, I would always change my clothes. So the change of my
Mm.
clothes gave an indication that I was now in a new role or I was now in a new space. It's a mental thing for me. It was sort of like I'm shedding, what I'm currently doing. I'm now going to put on this new persona or this new thing. And it really was helpful too, because I had sort of an idea of what I would wear when I was doing my remote work so that individuals would know that's what I'm wearing, so that if they saw me in that, then they would know, oh, daddy's working, or, oh, my wife would say, oh, I'm working. So she would know the difference. And so if you can just think about that and how that may work, that's just a little tidbit. That's a bonus for today.
That's awesome. All right,
I
so
love that.
tell us some roles that you have then. So, what's been your background? What's your skill set? What are you currently doing or trying to do?
Yeah, so have always been in technology. Used to be a software developer, moved into product manager about 5 years ago now. So those are all kind of roles. And now I'm splitting between product manager as well as business owner. In all cases, always have the role or responsibility of solving problems through technology. And I think that has always been a passion and skill of mine, but that's the role that I enjoy most. Next to the role of father that we kind of talked about, I appreciate the call out of role versus your emotions or the way that you describe yourself. But yeah, those are my main roles right now. So business owner, uh, product manager slash technologist, and then father.
Yeah, it's great. Good.
Awesome.
So you got the roles. We got some idea of you, and I really do appreciate the fact that you drilled down further each time that we asked that question, and really had you think deeper about it. Because I will tell you, John, you're not alone. Like most people define themselves by their roles, like of whether and there's nothing wrong with it, right? So we're not saying, oh, don't define yourself by it, but what we're saying is, can you think deeper into what are the characteristics, or what are the qualities, what are the values that are really important to you? Values like, well, I'm honest. I'm a compassionate person, a person who tells the truth. I like to think that I can, be more humble when people provide me compliments or say good things about me. So it's really making sure that we appreciate those things of who we are. So it's a little bit of a process. So think of doing like a cohesion affirmation for yourself. So a cohesion affirmation is when we recognize the role that we play, but we appreciate the person for who they are. So you may have to, from time to time, John, may have to give yourself your own cohesion affirmation where you identify, I am a good dad. And what makes me good is that I'm spending time with my kids. I'm trying to understand what they're going through. I'm not trying to be impatient with them. And now all of a sudden you have really affirmed yourself in a way that celebrates that role and also appreciates that identity.
Yeah, that's great. I think we don't always have the space to think that deeply on things. Everything is at surface level. You have the quick 5-second answers, but digging deeper, I mean, one helps you appreciate it more, but also might highlight some gaps that you're looking to fill.
Yeah, yeah, super. Now we want to get into
Well,
the
well, I would even call
yes.
that the meat. Normally we say
Yeah.
we want the uh-oh to be the meat, but that was
Oh,
a
that
really good
no, that was
talk.
really
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah.
So now we're gonna say we just talked about the things you aspire to be good at. We want to hear a time where you had an uh-oh, where you messed up, where so what are you prepared to share with the world?
Yeah, so this is a big one going back, and I've spoke about this. I think sometimes with uh-ohs, you if it's traumatic, you have to be able to live through it and recover from it before you talk about it. But this goes back, gosh, now 15 years. I was 18 turning 19 and I had my first son. So looking and planning for colleges, life was the world is my oyster and have all these aspirations, looking at Ohio State as a college, and found out about halfway through being 18 that my girlfriend was pregnant. So I'll kind of start there, and I'm sure we'll dig deeper. But that was definitely a big uh-oh moment that has turned into great things. But at the time, it was like, where do I go from here?
Wow. So looking at that immediately, what did that cost you to have that uh-oh?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, looking back, I don't know how much it cost me. Obviously, I might have went to a different college, so to kind of add context there, I lived in Northeast Ohio, just outside of Youngstown. So looking at Ohio State was going to be, a move. Going to Akron would have lived on campus, but because of this, had to change direction and ended up going to Youngstown State University. But I wouldn't say it cost me anything because one, it was far less expensive than those other colleges. Two, it allowed me to commute, which again also kind of saved money. And I got a very similar degree to what I would have at one of those other colleges. So I think there's a lot of benefits at the time. It cost me some mental sanity. I guess we could say that was a cost back in the day of like how I was doing really well in school and kind of just did well in school, had a good job, all these different things in place. So there was not much, uh, there was not many challenges in my life at that point. So to go from kind of a challenge-less life to a life with a big challenge, that was something again that I learned from, but at the time was, for lack of a better word, very challenging, and had to kind of dig my way through that.
um, there's stats out there, but it also costs you to raise a child. So what did that look like? So that was an expense that you weren't accounting for in your 18, 19, 20 year old brain. So what did that change? Like, did it change the things you could do as a teenager that's supposed to be fancy free in college?
Yeah, that's a good point. So both me and my girlfriend at the time were very lucky that we had very supportive families. So they definitely helped us from like a living arrangements, baby showers, gave us almost everything that we needed to raise Connor, which was great. I think honestly, like time was obviously one of those other higher costs. At the time when I'm 21, all my friends are going out on weekends, going to do all these things. I did not have that time, and so I spent time home with Connor. So again, at the time I was very jealous of other people. Looking back, if I did nothing but party in the weekends, who knows where I would be today. I think when we talk about superheroes and Marvel, I wish I could see a long multiple timelines, because I might go back and the grass looked greener back then, but really I might have ended up in a worse spot.
I really appreciate that perspective because I think that it's just a fun exercise sometimes to look back and say, what would it be if something were different? But like you, I'm very grateful for like where I am today, and I'm not even sure that if I went back 30 years, if I could pull off what I have really been able to accomplish today any better or any different. And I think that although it might be a fun exercise, I think it's important to keep it a fun exercise because there isn't anything you can do about the stuff that's already happened. It's already gone. My mom used to say, like, don't waste any more time on what you already did. She said the only thing you can impact is what you're going to do now and what you're going to do in the future. And so it really just gives a whole different perspective to not looking back on situations in your life and saying, wow, I think I would do that different. For me, when I do have that experience, it's like I would like to have told myself some different things. I think I would have liked to have said to myself, it's going to be okay. It's not going to get as messy as it is right now in this moment. And there'll be a lot of really good things. So just hang with it and carry it out. So have you ever had those types of thoughts where you might say what you would say to yourself, to a younger self, and what that would be like?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think for me, if we fast forward to today a little bit, I am not as risk tolerant as I would like to be. And so I do think previous decisions where maybe somebody would have taken a little bit more risk, I was a little bit afraid to do that. And to your point, I wish I would have told myself, like, hey, you've made it this far with different challenges. Like, you always end up on top one way or another. You should trust yourself, push yourself outside your comfort zone a little bit more, and try that slightly riskier thing. Again, I'm in a great spot today, but I am always curious of the if I would have taken a little bit more risk back then, where I would be. And I think those would probably be the main words of advice that I'd give to myself, probably 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and 10 years ago.
Yeah, and also this desire to be a good dad, because you brought that up in the very beginning of the episode. Were you driven by being a good dad early on, or is it something that matured or evolved?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Me and my dad had still have a good relationship. I think for me, it was hanging out with other dads. Growing up, my biggest focus was get the big job that pays good money, and you'll have all the fun, crazy things, and like, you'll live an amazing life. But then later figured out that it's more than just money and all the toys, and it was like, okay, so what, when you look at the ideal family in a Hallmark movie or something like that, what is that extra piece? And like, it's not the fancy house, it is like the white picket fence and things like that. And so for me, I wanted to stop being so focused on just myself. I mean, kind of selfish on that side, and look more at the family side of things. I think it also came from being a workaholic when I first started my career and realizing how much negative impact that had on my family. And when I moved down to Charleston, it was like, oh, this is what like a balanced life looks like, with happy hours throughout the week and beach weekends and things like that. I was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. Like money doesn't matter as much anymore, because I realized that this lifestyle is what I want, which then also kind of leads back to being the good dad.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, we sometimes ask in this conversation, like, how you're not going to do that one again, right? But I'm not even sure how appropriate that question is in this situation because,
We know what you could have done.
yeah, we know that.
Yeah.
But you don't want the results of that,
Yeah,
right?
so-
At this point.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. I've learned so much from it.
So then let's just talk a little bit more about that. Like, let's kind of dive down a little deeper, dwell down into this, and say, what are some things that you would say that you have clearly learned about yourself through this process?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is it's more than just about me. I've never, I balance, I always struggle in like being selfish and then being selfless. There's times that I probably should be more selfish in life because I am giving to others, but then there's other times I realize that the decisions that I make are based off of being selfish, or maybe my attitude towards something, not playing the victim card, but one of those cases like, why did this happen to me type deal. It's like, because that's just the way life is and you have to kind of deal with it. Right. We had plans to go to the beach this past Thursday, Brittany and I, and the school calls about 5 minutes before we're about to leave, and Lucas has an ear infection. I was like, this is the first day we've taken off in forever, and this thing came up, but we made the best of it. We stayed home. We were able to still relax, watch Netflix together on the couch, something that we don't normally get to do with two kids, or the third one, and everything else like that. So I think for me, going back to when I was very selfish and just so focused on the future, I've definitely become a little bit more present, always working on that because I'm still very future focused. But making sure that I understand, kind of back to when we talked about work mode and dad mode, understanding when I'm allowed to focus on the future and like personal development, and then when I need to focus on the present and family development.
Do you think that's something that naturally evolves over time as you become more wise and mature in things? Or do you think it's a matter of circumstances, things that just showed up?
I think it's in between. I guess if you focus in on the growing more mature, you need to be self-aware enough to make that growth. So there are times that you could go through life and people could have been put under the same circumstances as me, but if I wasn't, I'll be selfish here, if I wasn't aware enough to identify that, then I wouldn't have made the changes to become the more mature person. And so it's kind of, was it nature versus nurture? It doesn't come out of habit, but like I was able to grow it based off of the situations that I was in and being aware enough to make those changes.
Right. And it's not just something that's inherent. Like, people don't necessarily evolve just because they can evolve. They evolve because they want to evolve. They evolve because they have influences around them that they pay attention to, and they make modifications and they change. So, all of this that you're talking about, and for anyone listening, this is learned behavior. This is not something that's, oh, this is how John was wired, so he's going to end up like this. No, this is your effort that you have put into it. And so, what you've demonstrated through this conversation is how important emotional intelligence is to the way we interact with our world. The fact that you become self aware of a situation, you can then have self regard or self correcting behavior. And you can do so without somebody having to point it out or to tell you. Then your motivation is driven for you. Like, what is it that motivates or drives you? And you have very specific things that actually move you into action, that make things happen. And then you look at your social aspect. You become social aware of it, and then you have a social regulation that you would be able to put in place. So those five characteristics or those five elements are the keys to emotional intelligence. And you've really demonstrated all of that in your conversation with us today, talking about something that's really very sensitive, but you were being very authentic and very forthcoming with, and I appreciate that.
it's become a resounding theme that by talking about uh-ohs and mistakes, that biggest thing is the awareness of the need for that self-reflection, and also coming back down to the intentionality of that. We go back into intentions versus intentionality is the idea that you're spending the time. There's a phrase that says, with age comes wisdom, but often age comes alone.
Mm-hmm.
So it requires you to reflect on those things. And I think without that, we just go. And there's so many folks that are men that haven't grown up or taken the responsibility, or women that have this lifestyle. And I've been speaking with a lot of youth lately and giving speeches to the youth. And one of the things that I've asked folks in their 20s what they'd like to learn more or be told when they were 18 was that the friends they have now are not the friends you're going to have later, without intentionally trying to maintain that friendship. They're convenience. A lot of friends are convenient at a certain time in your life until you focus on them. And I think that's a big note to say the relationships that we have are the ones we keep, are the ones that we keep up.
Yeah.
And it could be every 6 months or a year. Like there's certain friendships that you spend enough time at the beginning, but the ones that you thought were going to be the ride or dies when you were 17 are probably nowhere to be found.
Yeah. I think another thing that was really helpful in the way you shared your story is that you understood choices. You understood that your character would be defined by the choices that you made, not the circumstance you found yourself in. And so I think that has a lot to be said, not only for the quality or the characteristics of who you are, but how you bring that forward in doing that. And I'm sure that that information comes across to your kids. They get a chance to see that. So, we can blame anything. We can say, oh, I'm not going to be accountable or responsible for this because, that sort of little thing got me to do this. But the reality is that choices are always yours. Like they are your choices to make. And when Ben made that quote about wisdom and age, I want to just put this in perspective for people who are listening and paying attention to this. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. So if you don't apply what you are learning, then you don't gain wisdom. You might say this person is wise and they have wisdom, and that's awesome. But if you want to have that wiseness and that wisdom, you have to put in place information, especially in a positive format. And when we talk about leadership, it's always positive. We're not talking about negative leadership. We're not talking about people trying to create cults or gangs or things of that nature. We're really focusing on that positive aspect. And then one last thing that I want to comment on for you is that when you talked about leadership and about the selflessness and to do that, I want to make sure you have permission to really focus on self. I want to make sure you're giving yourself permission that you can focus on self. Now, the concept of leadership that we subscribe to, this cohesive leader concept, says that we are going to focus on the needs and wants of others first before self. But it's not a martyrism. So we're not saying you never focus on self. And we also believe that you as a leader have to get self right before you can be in a position to positively impact others. So if you believe that your role as a leader is to motivate, influence, and enable others to be successful, then you have to be in a good space. You have to be in a good headspace to make that happen. So I think this is a lot of what you demonstrated in your conversation today. And I'm just grateful and thankful for you being able to do that.
I also say, as a friend, you're good at checking in every so often. It's been a minute since we've been able to connect, but you're always checking in every couple weeks or whatever. Let's try to, sometimes the actual connecting doesn't happen, but just to have a conversation. Simon Sinek even talks about that. Just throw out the message to somebody when you're actually thinking about them, not 6 months later when you saw them saying, "Oh, I was thinking about you the other day." Well, that would have been great to have known when you were actually doing it, because you never know what that little message will do.
Yeah.
So sometimes he says 8 minutes of connection can make a huge impact on someone's day, week, month, if you're willing to take the time.
So Jon, how would you recap a little bit of what you experienced today through the podcast?
Oh man. I mean, we got to dig deep. And one thing I was going to mention when were scheduling this, it was like, I can't really think of a lot of uh-oh moments. And Dr. Troy, you're like, what do you mean? I can think of 3 in the last month. And I think there's goods and positives of that. Or there's goods and negatives. I think from a mindset perspective of, one, I think we need to reflect more on those uh-oh moments and like truly identify what we learned from them. But also on the positive side, it's like, I bet you I had more, but they were just blips on the timeline and like wasn't really as big as I realized until we got to have a conversation like this. So for me, coming on here and talking about it, I used to talk when I worked with high school and college students, like, hey, I had a kid at 18, like I still built a successful life. You can too. Don't think that, hiccups along the way are going to dramatically like negatively impact your life. But I think focusing and having that reflection time, we dug way deeper than just hey, this happened 15 years ago and I'm better today, right? I basically, here's a 15-minute or a 15-year conversation. It happened and here I am, versus all the in between, all the life lessons learned along the way. So finding that uh-oh moment and not just doing the resume answer of tell us about a time where something bad happened to you and you pushed through it. Okay, cool. I can describe that to you in 2 minutes. It's how has your life been impacted by that and what lessons are you still using today? And to me, that is where this conversation went versus the 30-second resume answer.
Yeah, super sweet. We appreciate that.
I think there can be a big lesson there because you are, for the most part, a very optimistic person where you look at the best in everything, and to spend the time to realize that, because you can look back at everything and say, I learned something from it. And I've done those exercises before where I've gone through the past and everything was above the energy line or above the high line because, oh yeah, that bad thing happened, but I learned this and all that. But I realized I never spent the time to go into, well, what was the emotions of that situation at the time? It's so I think you just went through this process of looking through it of what was I feeling then, and that's how it impacted me. And so for anybody else listening that always says that they learned something or that everything is happy-go-lucky, and you can always see the silver lining and everything, there's a lot of power to understanding that, but also going back to it and being like, truly, what was I feeling then before I got the lesson out of it? What did I learn? And I see that's a powerful lesson or example to go through.
So, John, we
Yeah.
were curious. What is a question that we did not ask you today that you thought we would ask?
Ooh, that's a good question. I didn't think you were going to ask that. Let's see here. One question I kind of like, and I think this goes back to how you develop over time, is what did success look like 5 or 10 years ago, and how does it look today? And luckily, I have this question because I am answering that for another interview that is coming up for a book. But I look back and realize that today I have almost built the life that I dreamed about in high school, which is really cool. And so I now have another 10 or 20-year vision in front of me. But back then it was, like I mentioned earlier, get the job that pays well so you can have the big house and the vacations and everything. And today's success is a little bit more, it's still financial. There's still a financial tone to it as far as kind of being like financially free, but it's more time freedom, and that is to spend more time with family or honestly to relax. Having a family and building a business while also working a full-time job, time is a rare commodity right now, and I'm trying to build that lifestyle where I do have that flexibility. And so that's kind of the question I like to reflect on, because I'm always focused on from today forward. I never look back. And I don't want to, you mentioned, Dr. Troy, don't spend too much time on the past, but there is some good reflection points in there. And so comparing success 10 years ago of what I thought that would look like 10 years ago from then, so basically today, and what my 10-year vision is now are definitely different and have adjusted.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I'm really glad that not only did you ask the question to yourself, but you also
We
answered
answered
it,
it.
because
Yeah.
that's exactly what we were going to do, is say, okay, now answer the question. So you did a super job with that. And then the other point that you just made there about the past, I think it's important to make people understand that, I don't make people understand, but to have individuals understand that the past is a reference point. You don't live in it. You don't wallow in it. You look back, you look at it and then figure out, okay, what do I do differently? Just like the conversation we had today, it's like, oh, whatever that moment was, whether it's a good moment or an uh-oh moment, it's, you can learn from it, because it's not the successes or failures that shape your life, it's how you handle them and what you do with that. So, John, we really appreciate you being authentic, coming on board today, sharing all this information with us, really helping our listeners really glean some great pieces of information from this. We like to consider this like mentoring through mistakes or mishaps. So it works out really great. But like we like to close out all of our Cohesion Culture or our Cohesive Leader programs with this simple mantra, and that is, you don't have to know everything.
You just need to be teachable.